Hello and welcome to SATV's International Affairs Talk Show. As always, I am your host Shamsul Alam Pantho, and we shall be discussing major world headlines today. Before I do so, let me introduce our panelists. First, we have retired Air Commodore Ishfaq Ilahi Chaudhry, who has served in the Bangladesh Air Force, a profound academic, a security analyst and columnist. And we also have Professor Dr. M. Shahiduzzaman, who has retired from the University of Dhaka. He was there as in the Department of International Relations and also is a defense analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining our discussion today.
Thank you.
First, I will look at social media, Donald Trump's post recently. I'll give it to you word by word so that you understand what he's trying to say. I begin my quote saying, "What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if he wanted for me, lots of really bad things would already happen to Russia. And I mean really bad. He's playing with the fire." This was said, of course, by Donald Trump. In addition to this, it's quite evident in the modern age that warfare is also conducted in various levels. We've seen sometimes it's of narratives and sometimes through the exchange of fire. This comes in as US and Europe lift range restrictions on Ukraine missiles. German Chancellor Merz confirmed Kiev can now target Russian military positions with long-range weapons from Western allies. My first question would be to Mr. Ishfaq Ilahi Chaudhry. With the lifting of range restrictions, Ukraine will be able to arm itself with weapons which are capable to target far-off locations in Russian land. The power projection is immense in this case. Given your expertise, do you think this will cause the conflict to prolong? In addition, in today's warfare, there are not only missiles but unmanned aerial drones, advancement in radar technology. How do you see this world conflict unfolding?
Frankly speaking, you see, this is now the third year of that conflict, which when Putin attacked Ukraine, he was thinking of winding it up within a week or even 48 hours, because if you see on the very first day, the Russian troops were already inside, they are paradropped inside Kiev, the capital. From that, it has gone on to the third year, and the human and material casualties, I mean, it has not only, it has hugely affected Russia, it has affected Ukraine and the whole world, economy and the diplomacy, everything is centered around for the last 3 years on, and there is no end in sight. So what like here, Mr. Trump, when he was campaigning, he was saying that I'm the one who can bring an end to this conflict. He said, gave him 48 hours or 1 week or whatever it is. But now it appears that there is no end in sight. He hasn't been able to bring Putin onto the negotiating table. And if you're that statement of attacking, you see, deep inside Russia by missiles, if that is true, that is one step, upgrading the military situation. Drones have been used on both sides extensively. The Ukrainian capital, Kiev, has often been attacked because it's very close to the border. But the drones, Ukrainians' drones have attacked deep inside Russia, and including sometimes in the capital Moscow itself, which is nearly 600 kilometers inside. But drones, effect of drones are very limited. If you want to really hit a target which is identified, and if it is because it definitely carries a very small warhead. But if they give the Ukrainians permission to attack with the say long-range missiles, which might be ground launched or also could be air launched. Like you penetrate and then you attack. Now that is what the Russians always considered their heartland. The Western Russia, the Moscow and its adjacent areas. Now that will definitely call for response from Russia, and it will be very unfortunate if it goes on to escalating, because ultimately it is, as you said quoted about Germany or some Western powers, they are supplying the weapons, they are but they are not fighting. Their people are not dying. It is the Ukrainians who are dying, it is the Russians who are dying. And about Ukraine, I don't know, but the Russians are seriously, they have such casualties, heavy casualties. They are now recruiting mercenaries from all over the world. First of all, they started recruiting mercenaries from ex-Soviet Central Asian republics like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, their own Chechen people. And now they are also reports that recruiting countries like Bangladesh. And people of Bangladesh, they are going and they are dying in the war far away in the European theatre. Now that shows that how desperate they are. Now we need to have a solution of this, and it has often been suggested that there are on the eastern Ukraine, there are pro-Russian speaking people, original Russian, there are on the Luhansk and other on the eastern, and also the Crimean Peninsula. If that area which has been held by Russia for a long time, if that's some sort of negotiation that yes, Russians will have control over this, although it's an aggression, one can't say that why an area, but the Crimea is definitely, it has a history of, it was originally conflict to the Russia, and it was given over to the to Ukraine by Khrushchev, who was actually from Ukrainian origin. So there has to be a give and take here, and on the Russian side, you see, Putin cannot appear to be totally a loser. Then he will lose his job in Moscow. And also Ukraine and the Western Europe cannot be also seen as a loser, because then the whole NATO structure is in question. So the peace can only be brought out in such a way where the negotiation is held and both sides appear to be, if not winners, not losers. You see, some sort of give and take. On the Ukrainian side, he might, as Putin has said, that they must say that, okay, we will not join the NATO, because that's the red line they have crossed. And on the Russian side, they have to, whatever, initially their demand was all the way up to that, there is a river on the eastern side, I'm forgetting the name, but that from there they have to come back and also give sea access, ensure sea access to Ukraine, their ports and all. So there has to be a negotiated settlement, and this can't go on and on, that you drain this and continue to dragging this war for the third year now.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Of course, we know that both Ukraine and Russia has chosen to have an exchange of prisoner swap, 1,000 people each. Most definitely, that would bring in more kind of the intel that the prisoners had on each other's side. I will now look at the Israel-Palestine conflict, but before I go into a breaking news, I'll give you a short recap of what world leaders are saying. This definitely includes the German Chancellor and the German Foreign Minister. They both said that they would take threatening measures unspecified by them as well on Israel, so that they would also not export weapons that would break humanitarian law. Then the Belgian Foreign Minister, Maxime Prevot, has said only the word genocide can be used to describe what's going on in Gaza. And he quoted saying it is no longer enough for the Belgian government to condemn the situation. Actions are needed to make Israel move. Addition to this, Australian PM Anthony Albanese is to impose sanctions on Israel over the Gaza blockade, as he was pressured by the grassroots Labour members. Not only so, last night the Irish government approved the drafting of a bill to ban imports of goods from illegal Israeli settlements, an unprecedented move by an EU member. Yesterday we've seen thousands of Palestinians storming into aid facility which was backed by US and Israel, and the UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric has called it a very heartbreaking notion. My question is to Professor Shahiduzzaman. The war wages on against innocent lives lost in this conflict. As an expert analysis on defense, do you see the Western world finally condemning Israel?
Well, I would be rather cautious in saying so. After all the killings and the brutalities that had gone through, that the Palestinians have gone through, now this element of caution and a sort of criticism of Israel is almost like a cosmetic approach. With President Trump in power and with the Ukrainian war still going on, European leaders seem to be tired of the excesses committed by Netanyahu. There is, of course, the reality of a huge pressure by the Muslim minorities in Europe. And in current times, we do see that the Arab leaders have gained a certain degree of confidence, especially after the visit of President Trump to Saudi Arabia and his turnaround in terms of being so friendly towards Netanyahu in the past. That may have offered some degree of confidence among the European leaders. But honestly speaking, I do hope that there has been a qualitative shift in Europe. There is some optimism because of the fact that the younger generation across the countries in Europe are more objective and very concerned about the human rights violations of Israel, and they do see that Israel is putting its own existence in jeopardy by a continuous use of repression as a means to undo the creation of a Palestine state. In recent times, of course, the European states have been more forthcoming in perceiving the creation of a Palestinian state. But the fact is that unless the settlements are withdrawn and unless Netanyahu is finally removed from the position of power in Israel, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. It is quite possible that the more moderate elements in Israel, their numbers may rise, and they have been a rather lonely voice for so many years. But it's time that the liberals, the right-thinking people in Israel, are inspired by American Jews to a great extent, who are more liberal compared to the Israelis themselves. That would inspire some hope, but that's still far-fetched. European powers, I think, still are considered to be more more objective compared to the Americans. They have a clear vision in terms of how important the Arabs are as trading partners, especially countries like United Kingdom, France and Germany have extensive ties with the Arab countries, and they do compete with the United States in terms of export of selling of arms to these states. To that extent, of course, there would be a qualitative shift, because Trump has been too aggressive in marketing American weapons, and that has not been taken very kindly by the European leaders. Especially a year ago, France was almost snubbed by the Australians on the question of the United States selling nuclear-powered submarines. Since then, France had always taken a more deviationist line. But then, unfortunately, the German leadership has not been too supportive compared to the past years of German appreciation for the Palestinian cause. Right now, we do see a German leadership that is more towing the American line. But at the end, I think there would be some change of heart by President Trump that may inspire the Europeans. In recent times, the American president seemed to have gained a greater intuition about the implications of Israeli repression. Just the way President Trump seems to have treated the Indian leadership with a certain degree of reservation, the President Trump seems to, and at the same time, he perhaps has some inclination to put an eye on the Nobel Peace Prize. Interesting as it might seem, that I think could be a very a very creative inspiration to President Trump to be critical of Israel's excesses. But at the end, of course, the people of Gaza deserve to have their city rehabilitated. They do deserve to get back to their homes. And that is $1 million question. Will that actually happen in the long run? Or will they remain destitute, just dependent on, alms from the European countries and other regional powers?
Sure, Mr. Chaudhary, please.
I agree with him in the sense that Europeans have very little power today to decide on the issues other than the cosmetics, steps that they are going to take. The main person remains American President Trump, and see what he has done when his visit to the Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Kuwait. The billions and billions dollars weapons he has sold, and he is so happy that he has been able to sell these weapons and also aircraft. So, but you see, these are enriching the American economy, but this is in no way going to be pro-Palestinian issues, and he hasn't yet. He has said that yes, why they have huge space in Saudi Arabia, why don't they take the Gaza people there, and I will rebuild this as a tourist resort. He has not yet repudiated what he has said in the past, and recently in he has taken steps against the students. Even American students who participated in the pro-Palestinian issues in the American university. Now that shows the very, very I would say a deep-rooted prejudice against this thing. So until these sort of things are corrected, unfortunately the people of Palestine and especially Gaza people, I don't think their sufferings are going to end very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. You touched on the point regarding the education facilities in Donald Trump's admission. We also see that Donald Trump had threatened a tariff against all the EU nations, a 50% tariff, which he said would be taking place in June. We know that an internal war is actually happening in Donald Trump's America. We see Ivy League institutions like Harvard, Brown University, all of them that have billions of dollars of endowments now being threatened by the Trump administration, being cancelled. In a recent news, $200 million grant towards Harvard was cancelled. So all of this stems back to the Israel-Gaza conflict. How? I'll tell you. Donald Trump has the notion that the Jewish students of these institutions are being prejudiced upon. My question I'll go to Mr. Chaudhary again. How do you think Donald Trump is going to counter this issue that he's having with the educational facilities in his own hometown?
Yeah, this is a very, probably Professor Said-Zaman will be able to throw more lights on it, but I feel that, maybe he holds some prejudice against this Ivy League institution. Maybe, I don't know what was his educational background, but in the United States, these universities have produced so many presidents, foreign secretaries, Secretary of State, and the diplomats, and the people who have spoken, who have made America proud. So, by attacking this institution, he is actually, hitting the very core of the American strength. Because America has become great not by manufacturing, stitching shirts and making shoes. America is great because of the ideas and the scientific achievements which these universities have produced. And many of them are actually foreign students who have gone to very large number of the Chinese students are there.
27%.
Yes, and the Indians and the Japanese and the Koreans, and more recently many Bangladeshis are also there. So they have contributed, you see. For example, many of these, I know that Harvard and MIT, they do many research on military issues. Today what we are saying, artificial intelligence, precision guided munitions, the weapons which travel thousands of miles and go and hits the target. Many of these have been research have been done in the American universities, and if you go back further, you will see many of the Chinese and Indians and Bangladeshi students may be involved in the initial thesis work. They produce the whole thing, mathematical, solution, then they give it to the industry, and the industry produces the items. So even defense and artificial intelligence and computers and all the modern things which are actually all have got defense implications. These are done by these universities. So if he is stopping the funds or restricting their students and all, this will have a very serious impact. And if he forgets that America is you see why America is great, because of the immigration. Throughout the world, people in search of their future, people in search of their livelihood, people in search of new knowledge, people in search of an unrestricted academic environment have migrated to United States. People have even from Europe, where they have, when they were subjected to various restrictions, they went to United States to freely exercise their options. Now, if that becomes a very restrictive society, then there will be no attraction left. So, if you want to beat China, if you want to remain number one, you have to open up. You cannot restrict the society.
Definitely a very in-depth analysis by Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall be talking about Pakistan and Azerbaijan's ties, the 30th Nikkei Forum held in Japan, and lastly, the continuous assault on narratives towards Bangladesh in regard to the Indian media. Do stay with us as we head for a commercial break.
যাতে আপনার যে কাহিনী আইছিল গুপ্তধনের কলস দেখছে কলসটা বের করে লেখেন
নাটক ফিট বাবু দেখবেন ঈদের দ্বিতীয় দিন রাত ৮টায়।
আমার গুপ্তধন চুরি হয়ে গেছে।
বর্ণিল ঈদ আয়োজন নিয়ে আমরা থাকছি আপনার সাথে। ঈদ মোবারক। পবিত্র ঈদ উল আজহায় এসএটিভির ৭ দিনব্যাপী বিশেষ আয়োজন। চাকা অল ইন ওয়ান ডিটারজেন্ট পাউডার নিবেদিত ঈদ স্পেশাল এসএ-ম্যাটিনি। ঈদের দিন দেখবেন ফুল নেব না অস্ত্র নেব। ঈদের দ্বিতীয় দিন দেখবেন বিয়ের প্রস্তাব। ঈদের তৃতীয় দিন দেখবেন হীরা চুনি পান্না। ঈদের চতুর্থ দিন দেখবেন মন যেখানে হৃদয় সেখানে। ঈদের পঞ্চম দিন দেখবেন ভালোবাসলেই ঘর বাঁধা যায় না। ঈদের ষষ্ঠ দিন
Hey, MCR, how many minutes we have?
দেখবেন যদি বউ সাজবো। ঈদের সপ্তম দিন দেখবেন তোমাকে বউ বানাবো। বর্ণিল ঈদ আয়োজন নিয়ে আমরা থাকছি আপনার সাথে। ঈদ মোবারক।
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SATV's International Affairs Talk Show. And of course, we are joined with Professor Dr. M. Shahiduzzaman, retired Air Commodore Ishfaq Ilahi Chaudhary as well. Now I'll look at issues into Asia. As you know, the Nikkei Forum is taking place in Japan, is a series of events and conferences organized by Nikkei Inc. It's a Japanese media company known for its newspaper, the Nikkei. The forum served as a platform for discussion, the exchange of ideas of various topics, particularly those related to Asia. As we've seen in the media report, Interim Chief Advisor Professor Muhammad Yunus had left Dhaka earlier today on a 4-day official visit to Japan to attend this 30th Nikkei Forum and to hold talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. This, of course, is to boost bilateral cooperation. I'll give you some of the statistics. Japan is, of course, the single largest bilateral development partner of Bangladesh, has contributed in various sides in socio-economic advancement, and the bilateral trade between the two countries now stand at around USD $4 billion. While Japan is one of Bangladesh's 5 top export destinations. I'll also add on, Japan is a pacifist nation and has remained so after the Second World War. However, recently Japan has increased its military budget. My question is for Professor M. Shahiduzzaman. In a video a couple of months ago, you garnered quite the notoriety, I would say, and social media was a remark regarding the nuclearization of Bangladesh and how Bangladesh can use that to deter some of the hostilities it has in Southeast Asia or South Asia. With the chief advisor's visit, do you think Japan can aid Bangladesh in military advancements or developments?
I certainly think so. I just came across news that Japan has provided Bangladesh with a warship. Whether it's aid or whether it's purchased, I'm not sure. But it certainly indicates the prospect of important military cooperation with Japan in terms of military relations. As we know, Japan has been very interested in the port that it has developed on the bay. And in recent years, since Japan is associated with the United States regarding the containment of China, there are reports that Japan has been pressurizing Bangladesh not to be close to the Chinese.
So close.
This is an area which is quite worrisome for Bangladesh, because in the past years Japan has always been a very benign participant in development aid. One of the strongest donors for Bangladesh has been Japan. But in recent years, while we appreciate the fact that Japan is interested in having close military ties with Bangladesh and has a certain degree of interest in developing our ports, but if it takes a political posture and it assumes an aggressive role in terms of trying to apply pressure on a lesser developed country which seeks security alliance elsewhere, that would mean a qualitative change in Japan's foreign policy. That would almost make it a very active, aggressive participant in the American alliance system. I have a certain feeling that Japan could be persuaded by perhaps India, which is a huge market and is also a close trading partner of Japan, that maybe the Indians may have sort of suggested to the Japanese leadership that they might put pressure on Bangladesh. So I would anticipate that Japan's policy of close ties with the South Asian powers, its involvement in the Indian Ocean and in the Bay of Bengal would be marked by a greater maturity, that Japan would act independently and would try to understand the dilemma that countries like us face when we are bordered by a large neighbor which has geopolitical advantages and applies its muscle power to subjugate us as it has done over the years. So in this situation, to be honest, I find the US to be more tolerant, to be more realistic regarding the damage that India has done to our security quests, and seems to be less critical of our ties with China. I think Japan should follow the American lead rather than have some subjective views on Bangladesh. I would like to believe that the next 4 days of Chief Advisor's visit would be rewarding, although there has been some concern among academics of left-leaning character that Japan is facing some sort of a dilemma in terms of building some road or having offered a huge amount of aid to Bangladesh to develop a connectivity with India, which Bangladesh has decided to forego.
Yes.
And there has been some suggestions that Japan could pressure Bangladesh to keep that connectivity on. Here also again there is a question of whether Professor Yunus can act decisively. I believe he can, and given his goodwill and international stature, he would be perhaps able to steer Japanese policy more towards a neutral, independent line of action that would not treat us in terms of greater proximity of Japan to India, rather treat us independently.
Can I say a few words?
Please, Mr. Chaudhary, as well, if
If
you
there
want
is
to
time.
add.
I mean, I agree with him in that sense that Japan is a major, not donor. It's a what we call a partner in our development. And in this meeting today, I mean, whenever it meets, there is a likely commitment of $700 million of Japanese assistance in our development project. And one very interesting thing about Japanese projects are that they do things not only in time, they sometimes finish it ahead of time, and they also sometimes finish their product with less budget than originally, unlike what the Chinese do. They take a bid in the lowest available, and then they keep on increasing the price and also delaying the project. And our latest, this Jamuna bridge, railway bridge, is an example where and also our new airport, that is a terminal that is coming up. We are very happy with the Japanese, and we welcome the Japanese investment in Bangladesh. There is a whole Japanese EPZ coming up very close, and I hope that it will continue. Now about the Matarbari project, you see it's a huge project, and it will, as Professor Yunus himself has said, this will be our gateway to the Indian Northeast. So how do you transport once the goods can only come to Matarbari, ships can only anchor if the destination is accessible. You see, only with Bangladeshi import-export, you cannot justify a major seaport over there, because already Chittagong port has already expanded in outer which will almost double the size of Chittagong port. So the rather Matarbari deep sea port justifies its existence enough with generate business only when you have the northeastern access. So northeastern railway road communication must be there. In order, they should be encouraged to bring their goods here and export rather than to Calcutta or Mumbai. And also those who are bringing in there also must have access there. And if we have a Japanese export here, as the chief advisor told these Chinese in one of the Chinese meeting, that this can not only this Matarbari port, the whole of Bangladesh can become, and which has been is the market for the whole of Northeast, and it can be our a very export destination. For this we need road connection, we need railway connection, we need air connection. I mean, Guwahati to why not Guwahati to Chittagong, direct flights, or Silchar to Chittagong, like this, you see, and also the train. So this is one thing about the militarization. I would say, you see, they are very important partner of Indo-Pacific Alliance, and like Korea, Japan is very, very worried. Yeah, after Taiwan, will it be Japan? They have a history. Japan has the Chinese have a huge, complaint against Japanese because of the Second World, the occupation, and also the Japanese have also feared that the Chinese will want. So this is an area, and if we want to, I would say the military products which the Japanese are now making, I am talking about conventional, whether it's a destroyer or a fighter or something, and we need to diversify. We can't put all our eggs in one basket. We all have almost 80% of our equipment are now Chinese. So we need to have Russian. We have Russian equipment now, and similarly, if the Japanese equipment comes, we have the Korean frigate. The most modern frigate that Bangladesh Navy has got is from Korea. So similarly, if Japan is interested and if it works out, I think I will welcome it, because we must have this leverage from more than one. We should not put it all on one basket.
Special thank you to both gentlemen to comment on this matter. Most definitely, I'll be looking forward to Japan's interest in Bangladesh's development. Now I go on with another world headline. We see Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev renewing their pledge. They have met in Lachin, Azerbaijan as part of the trilateral summit. PM Sharif reiterated that both countries had stood by each other on every occasion and would continue to do so. The two leaders underscored the importance of coordinated efforts to promote regional stability, mutual prosperity, and principled positions on key international issues. My question is to Mr. Ishfaqullah Chaudhry. During the India-Pakistan conflict, Turkey, Iran and Azerbaijan were seen in support of Pakistan. Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb Ahmed of the Pakistan Air Force commented saying 6-0. TRT World, a news agency quite famous, called this incident the biggest dogfight since World War II. What is your take?
First of all, there was no dogfight. First of all, it was not an Indo-Pak conflict. It was a clash, a very limited clash for 4 days.
Yes.
And even no Pakistani Air Force aircraft crossed into India, no Indian aircraft crossed into, no tanks crossed each other, no, you see. So, it was a 4 days clash, and still Indians have admitted that we have lost some aircraft, and so have the Pakistanis, but all our pilots are safe. That's what the Air Vice Marshal over there, he said. And the Pakistanis, of course, have claimed that 6 of their aircraft were shot down. It's possible. In another channel, I said, you see, those who attack, in this day one, it was the Indian Air Force they were attacking. Okay, so the one who attacks carries bombs and missiles and all for long ground attacks. They also have a defensive way, but the one who attacks has an advantage against the one who defends has an advantage against the one who attacks. Yes. It's even on the ground, you see, when you go for an on the ground offensive, you will see that the people who go for the attack versus the people who are defending from trenches and all, they suffer less casualties compared to those attacks. So, it is possible that Indians, definitely both sides might have lost some aircraft, and Indians might have lost more because they had put in more aircraft also. They had 70 aircraft less. But it was not a classic dogfight, because nowadays they don't get each other. They can't even see each other. They can't even know who has shot whom. Unlike the olden days when you had the, going one after the other and you are shooting and you can see the other chap. So far as the ground, the evidences have been, both sides have been very, but the second and third day when it became the, air launched and ground launched missiles. Now, in this particular case, I would say that Indians have been able to prove some photographic evidence of the Pakistani airfields and the radar stations which were attacked before and after. These are, and again, these are available on commercial satellite here, but so far Pakistanis have not been able to show, like Adhampur, the destructions and all, no photographic evidence. Some must have gone onto the targets and they must have been damaged. But another thing we must realize that both the operational commanders were in constant touch with each other.
Accurate, yes.
The GMOs on this side. So they made sure that the attacks doesn't become an intolerable degree. Like, you can send 1 or 2 missiles, they send 1 or 2 missiles, they can create damage, you can have a crater on the runway, it can be repaired in few hours time. There are other airfields with other runways who can, but it was not intended to be a mass attack against the military targets by either side. They did not, which would have, but one thing that created, still it is mystery, is the attack over the Kirana Hills. Interestingly, both Pakistanis and Indians have said that no, we have not attacked, because those are some nuclear sites, and that could have responded. But I hope that nobody has attacked that. But although there was a photography that smokes are rising from that Kirana Hills ground, so one has to agree, both are very professional military. Another thing I would say, that war is fought not on the number of ships destroyed or number of tanks destroyed or aircraft, but the objective. What was the Indian objective? Indian objective was to send a message to the Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, who they accuse of creating all these. So they attacked their headquarters, Muridke and Bhavalpur, which is nearly, Bhavalpur is nearly 200 kilometers into the border. Muridke is also about 50-60 kilometers from border, and they hit precision on the, on the targets, which were complex mosques and madrasas and seminaries and everything. So again, one would say that, well, you can't eliminate these organizations just bombing, because these are ideological things. But Pakistan should also realize that harboring these people who are internationally known, will one day hurt them. See how they have created Taliban and how the Taliban is now praying against them. One of the first country which came up and condemned this incident in Pahalgam was Taliban government from Kabul. Now, these Talibans have been trained, nurtured, clothed, armed by Pakistan for years together. Now they are sitting in Kabul. They are the first one who condemned this. We condemn this terrorist attack. So we should. I basically would like that the peace should be restored, and both sides should refrain from this sort of activities which actually hurt every one of us, all the South Asia, and in fact the world. So I hope this particular clash has given some lesson that you really cannot win a war in this situation, and military is not really the option. They should go for negotiation and understanding, which probably I think the Pakistani President or Prime Minister has offered today,
yes.
a dialogue, direct dialogue, which I think India should accept, and we should sit across the table.
I just
Please,
like to
Mr.
add
Shahiduzzaman.
a differing view on this. I have my opinion is that Pakistan has greatly moved away from any recourse to using the Taliban or the refugees. In fact, for Pakistan, it has been a great burden the way the Afghan, Pashtuns came in thousands and then thousands, and they have literally colonized the northern part of Pakistan. And in a sense, I would say that far more than Pakistan, it's the Indian state terrorism. In Indians, tremendous level. Whenever something happens within Kashmir, without even an investigation, the Indians would turn towards Pakistan. I mean, they don't do that when there is so much terrorism in Mizoram, Nagaland, the Naxalites in India.
Yes.
Why is there so much terrorism? They don't blame Pakistan. I wish Indians should have been far more rational in terms of dealing with helping Pakistan towards moving away. Right now, the reality is that the Indians blame the Baluch Liberation Army. It's purely an Indian initiated, funded mechanism to promote terrorist activity in Pakistan. This is the great danger, that today when Pakistan ranks above India in terms of tourism friendly countries, this itself explains that how much Pakistan has recovered from that label. If we had a different country other than India, perhaps Pakistan would have been far better off, as just the way that Bangladesh is facing today.
Professor, allow me to interrupt. As we look on to the last topic of our show, I did mention the continuous assault of narratives. This is narrative, which is as dangerous as exchange of fire. How the Indian side has a, inflicting narrative towards Bangladesh. I'll give you, in the last 8 months, we've seen numerous times the Godi media of India continuously claiming that they would cut off Bangladesh's chicken neck, and also making the similar claim with the Chittagong hill tracks. Definitely, we see in recent times, they also mentioned the resignation of Chief Advisor Yunus.
Exactly.
In India, there are some characters, I'm not saying all, I do have to be very neutral here, but we see that the Indian media commonly takes an attack onto the Bangladesh sovereignty. Just as we see the India-Pakistan conflict unfolding. Mr. Shahiduzzaman, your remarks, please.
I am appalled in the last 9 months. I never had this idea. In the past, before these 9 months, I always used to believe that India ranked as one of the leading sources of freedom of the press, the quality of journalism would be high. But the last 9 months or so has totally changed my opinion, has educated me so much on the manipulative character of Indian journalism. It's absolutely absurd, and the little do they realize how much damage they do to themselves. When they are blaming Bangladesh for the Hindu killings, immediately, you'd realize that they're shifting the blame from themselves to Bangladesh. The real reality, I think the Americans know it, the Westerners know it. It's absolutely clear to the world that India ranks so high in terms of using propaganda as a device for coercion in foreign policy. There is no doubt that it will probably come out in the International Criminal Court very soon, as the evidence and investigations prove how the Indians were involved in killings, but they would never mention it, and they would simply turn the blame on Bangladesh as a region of killing of the Hindus. I mean, it's amazing. Right now we have the Bangladesh team playing in Lahore tonight, and the cricket team is led by a Hindu player in Pakistan.
Yes.
And I think the Indians in Calcutta would be wondering what would the way that they had demonized Bengalis, us as killers. I mean, this is something that would greatly affect India's image in the West, in the United States. I would say that in the next future years, as this BJP supported, RSS supported BJP propagates the concept of Akhand Bharat, and they have been doing it very clearly and aggressively. And that is exactly why they treat Pakistan so shabbily. Increasingly the Western countries would recognize that unless the Modi government is removed or somehow defeated, India would be gradually turning towards the identity of state terrorism. And this is something we in Bangladesh are extremely concerned. We are seeking very close defense ties with China, with Pakistan. Hopefully they will emerge as our allies, because there is right now the Indian media threat, continuous Indian media threat to cut off the northern part in Rangpur and also Feni. There has been exercises, they call it Tista, some aggressive exercises going on for almost a week, you know, and I really feel worried that one day, one of these days, this Indian propaganda could take a very aggressive form and could threaten our territorial integrity.
Thank you, Professor Shahiduzzaman. To both my gentlemen here, special thanks, retired Air Commodore Mr. Ishfaq Ilahi Chaudhary and Professor Dr. M. Shahiduzzaman, for the deep insights and contribution to our International Affairs talk show. Ladies and gentlemen, as I draw closer, today is the 28th of May. On this day in history, in 1961, Amnesty International was officially founded in London by British lawyer Peter Benenson. And in addition, on May 28, 1998, Pakistan emerged as the first Muslim-majority country to acquire nuclear capabilities, marking a pivotal moment in its history. That's it for today. I will be bringing you the latest in world news tomorrow, in tomorrow's installation of International Affairs. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.